He's a TV host. That's his main qualification. I know in TV we sometimes get confused.
Why do you denigrate this man's service?
Well, it actually happened. I'm sure many of you have heard that Pete Hegseth is officially the new Secretary of Defense for the United States. Now, before we get into this video and look at all of the meltdowns and the uphill battle Pete Hegseth had to go through, please like this video. It helps out so much, and others get to see the meltdowns as well. Now, let's see J.D. Vance finalize Pete Hegseth's nomination.
If not, on this vote, the yeas are 50 and the nays are 50. The Senate being equally divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative, and the nomination is confirmed.
Okay, so we had a lot of meltdowns surrounding Pete Hegseth being elected as the new Secretary of Defense. But first, I want to show you how Scott Jennings out of CNN might be a psychic, because he perfectly predicts essentially how Pete Hegseth was going to be voted in as the new Secretary of Defense.
I don't think the new information is going to change the calculation of people who've already, I think, made up their mind on what to do, or are pretty far down the road, truthfully. I don't think they were waiting for some other piece of information like this. I think it's going to be close. I do expect him to be confirmed. Obviously, he's going to lose a couple of Republicans, but it feels like he is on the way to being confirmed. We'll know in the next 30 hours or so. But to answer your question, Wolf, I don't expect this new information to matter. And frankly, to a lot of Republicans, given the way the Democrats have conducted themselves, and this last-minute information, it feels a little like a smear job. And
Scott Jennings was absolutely correct. 3 Republicans did not vote for Pete Hegseth, thus going into a tie, and it took J.D. Vance to break the tie, and now Pete Hegseth is the new Secretary of Defense. However, we kept seeing more and more of a smear campaign to make Pete look terrible in order for him to not get voted in as the Secretary of Defense.
Look, I understand there are people who have alcohol problems, but we cannot trust the safety of our country to someone who has demonstrated repeatedly using very bad judgment with alcohol and doing it in ways that truly have incapacitated him. This is not a moment to take that kind of risk with our national security.
The irony behind this clip is that Elizabeth Warren didn't even know that Pete Hegseth was never a general. So when she says you have to take this very serious, and she never even did her own research or homework on Pete Hegseth, that's comical. What's not comical is this next clip I'm going to play you from CNN.
There are many examples of questions that, yes, he was very articulate and polished, and he's a TV host. That's his main qualification. I know in TV we sometimes get confused.
Why do you denigrate this man's service? I don't understand. 20 years,
Scott,
decorated,
okay. Scott,
Ivy Leaguer. He's a TV host.
Scott.
That's all he is.
Wait
it's not his main qualification.
That is his main
She said he's a TV host. It's his main qualification.
It is his
You're denigrating this man's
qualifies you.
Not every member who serves deserves to be in charge of the DOD.
She said his main qualification is that he's a TV host, and I'm sorry, that's just baloney.
I think that gets him 40%
His main qualification is that he's a warfighter, and he's going to be the closest warfighter we've ever had to the enlisted people running the Pentagon. He's decorated, he's an Ivy Leaguer, and he knows what he's doing.
Now look, without a doubt, I think there are a lot of mixed feelings about Pete Hegseth. You can leave your comments down below what you think about him, but again, he was never a general. However, I do have a clip I found from CNN where Scott Jennings sort of reminds us as to why we might need a Pete Hegseth.
Does anyone have confidence in the current leadership of the Pentagon and the way the defense situation has been operating for the last several years? I mean, from the Afghanistan pullout, which was an extreme debacle for which no one was held accountable. We've had spy balloons flying over the United States. We built a $300 million pier as a public relations stunt, which wound up an American service member. I'd say I've had just about enough of the so-called insiders running the Defense Department. I think we ought to give Pete Hegseth a chance, because he's got two insiders. All the criticism of him is that he's not the expected Washington pick, and I'm just saying to you that the American people just voted against the expected Washington pick. So he's got 20 years in service, Afghanistan, Iraq, 2 Bronze Stars, Princeton, Harvard. Yeah, he's on TV, but so are the rest of us.
By the way,
And look, I'm not saying everybody is on board with Pete Hegseth once again, but I think a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump expect the unexpected. A lot of people know, look, Pete Hegseth, he was not a general, but in this current political climate, does it even matter anymore? Because a lot of people, again, like Scott Jennings said, are very upset with the way the military has been ran, with Afghanistan, the withdrawal, etc., etc. And that's why I think people are A-okay with somebody who should be competent enough to surround himself with the proper warfighters to get the job done.
Unfortunately, Mr. Hegseth is neither. He's neither trusted nor free of controversy, and I will strongly vote no. I want my colleagues to think about how absurd it is that this nominee has even made it to the floor. It's a shame that that has happened. We are being asked to trust our armed forces to a man with a history of erratic behavior. One of the kindest words that might be used to describe Mr. Hegseth is erratic. And that's a quality you don't want as head of DOD. He has a history of excessive drinking, of alleged domestic abuse, and zero experience leading a large organization of any kind. The new allegations that came out yesterday are even more troubling.
Now, I do think it's important to point this out. By the way, Donald Trump, the president, can fire the Secretary of Defense if Pete Hegseth does a terrible job or gets us in a bad situation. Now, I know with the U.S. military, the consequences are very high. Nonetheless, we do need to remember that he could be fired if he needs to be fired. Okay, super quick. I want to start a segment on this channel where I can inform my viewers on things that are happening within the U.S. government you're not really hearing about. This is the bill known as the Credit Card Competition Act. It hasn't been passed yet, but you should really look into it because I think you guys are going to like it. First things first, you have Visa Card and MasterCard who own 80% of the credit card market. I'm sure a lot of you actually use their services. Did you know they are not legally obligated to actually have a backup system in case your credit card goes down? You just hope in best practices that they will have a backup system. Now, they do have a backup system, but there's no actual law that states they need to have one. So with the Credit Card Competition Act, if it does get passed, it's good for every American that it will force every single credit card company to have a backup system so our credit cards don't go down and we don't lose our credit or our money, or if things get stolen, we will have a backup plan. Now, back to the program.
Of people being rounded up, loaded on buses, and dropping them off on the border. Is that how you see this happening?
Well, I don't like the analogy of rounding up. Look, again, this is a targeted enforcement operation. The president's been clear on this. We're going to concentrate on public safety threats. But in sanctuary cities, where they don't let us take that public safety threat into custody and the safety and security of a jail, we have to go find him. If he's with others in the country illegally, ICE will not turn the blind eye to that. ICE is going to uphold the oath they took. They're going to enforce the laws enacted by Congress and signed by a president. And they're going to do that without apology.
Okay, so we are learning a lot every single day as far as the updates with ICE and the deportations. Again, we are in the very, very early stages of what to expect. But we are seeing our first collaterals, is what ICE is calling it. This is when ICE specifically goes after a high-value target, somebody who is a known threat. They go after them, but then they have other people, illegal immigrants, living in the same house or apartment. This is a collateral. But I think we're getting a little insight into how ICE wants to fill the gaps of arresting and deporting illegal immigrants who didn't necessarily do anything wrong as far as maybe like a violent crime, but they were just in the same area or associated with the person getting deported. Again, this is becoming a very big controversy because if those deportations happens and then they have kids in a school system, we're also starting to see ICE agents get rid of the children in the school systems as well, and this is becoming another massive debate or topic within the whole deportations aspect of the Trump presidency.
I don't understand how hard it is to say violent criminals shouldn't be pardoned for trying to
have an insurrection and stop the peaceful transfer of power. Can you say that? I'm just out of curiosity.
Look, I'm okay that these people, especially those that assaulted cops, actually faced some consequence. But I won't cede an inch of the moral high ground on that issue, specifically law enforcement, to anybody who represents the Democratic Party in general. Because this is a party, I mean, especially here where we are in New York. You could assault all summer New York City police officers getting assaulted and beaten. You have Rikers Island where correction officers get stabbed, slashed, beaten every day. And the Democratic Party here in this state and nationwide doesn't say boo. We have a Soros prosecutor who won't prosecute these people. These January 6 guys that assaulted cops, they were in jail for 2 years, 3 years. That's fine with me. If you do the same thing here to a cop in this city, you're lucky you get 3 hours in the slammer.
Another very interesting aspect we are starting to see is the lack of discipline for the illegal immigrants who did pretty disturbing crimes. Now it makes sense why you have bills like the Lake and Riley Act that are being passed, because even for me, I was watching an ICE raid that went down in Boston, and it's like all of these guys had very bad crimes, but because Boston had a sanctuary city law, a lot of these illegal immigrants got away with it. And again, it has nothing to do with them being an illegal immigrant, but the double standard. If you were an American citizen and did the same crime, you were going to jail. So again, what I'm seeing is on the internet, the transparency of how much some of these illegal immigrants who did really bad things as far as breaking the law got away with.
We also saw very low ratings, viewership for Donald Trump's inauguration, which means a lot of people. Joe Biden got like 13 million more viewers 4 years ago.
I can't even believe The View is trying to convince the American public that because Donald Trump didn't get a lot of viewership compared to Joe Biden, that means he's not liked as a president. I'm going to play you a clip from CNN, a very recent one, that says the exact opposite.
Look, the American people really like what they're seeing, at least compared to where Donald Trump started 8 years ago, right? All right, this is Donald Trump's net approval rating. This is Reuters Ipsos. It's among adults. It was taken the first few days of this administration. Look here. Back in January 2017, Donald Trump became the first president in history to start his presidency with a net negative approval rating. Look at where we are now in January 2025. Considerably better at plus 6 points. That's up 9 points. To borrow a Donald Trump phrase, this is big league. This is a sign that the American people, at least initially, like what they're seeing. And so you see right here, more Americans approve of Donald Trump's job than disapprove. And that is very much unlike what we saw 8 years ago.
Again, it's quite shocking that mainstream media or TV shows are still trying to push these narratives. Maybe they're not doing it on purpose. Maybe they're ignorant. But I don't know why they don't understand how a lot of us are on X, we're on YouTube, on TikTok. We are seeing the independent media and we are seeing everything from all angles. So when somebody says, oh, people didn't watch Donald Trump's inauguration, so that means they don't like him and they like Joe Biden, that is absolute insanity. I don't know who's still watching The View. No disrespect to that show, but that is some pretty bad information, and that is beyond surface level information as well.
Fox, Congressman, you can't just spin a tail and pull the wool over people's eyes. Yeah. This is CNN. This is the news. We're asking you to come on and tell the truth.
And that's why more people are watching the Cartoon Network SpongeBob reruns right now, Jim. Look, I left the White House during a riot. My life was threatened. My life has been threatened within the last few weeks, yet there's no coverage of that. And you all continue this narrative attacking Trump. You just can't stand the fact that he won and that America spoke.
Congressman,
and that,
no,
and that your view is very diminished.
That's not the case at all.
And your view is very diminished.
All right, so with Pete Hegseth getting nominated and officially elected, I think we are starting to see the direction the U.S. government is willing to go in as far as putting trust in Donald Trump, but also knowing there is a standard to uphold what the U.S. public wants. A lot of people voted for Donald Trump. He got the popular vote, and that is very important for members of government to realize. Now, as far as the news cycle goes, I think it's challenging because you even have CNN saying, we don't only want to do anti-Donald Trump things. I think they're starting to realize it's bad for business, it's bad for politics. If you guys don't remember, back in 2016, all of the news headlines were how much Donald Trump stinks every single day for literally 4 years. That's starting to change. We're not seeing that as much anymore. All of the headlines are about Donald Trump, but not as negative, believe it or not. But once again, this video is mainly about Pete Hegseth. I am very curious to see how he does, since he was never a general. But one cool thing is we were both in the same unit in the 101st Airborne together. We didn't serve together, or we didn't serve during the same timeline, but we were both in the 101st Airborne Rockasans. I think that's kind of cool. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. We will see you guys later.